I'll be talking about what Research ICT Africa does to measure sector performance in Africa. And RIA conducted the first household survey in 2004 and the first sector performance review in 2003. So we see ourselves as the older sister of DIRSI. We're doing very similar work. In 2005 we conducted a survey among small and medium-sized enterprises. In 2006 another sector performance review. In 2007 and 2008 another household survey. And last year we also conducted a sector performance review. And I would like to explain how we link these types of research together to achieve our targets. When we talk about ICT sector performance, we think about the country, GDP contribution, employment. We think about operators, their financial performance and their incentive to invest. We think about consumers, about access and service quality and also affordability, what consumers have to pay. And consumers can be businesses, it can be individuals, it can be households. And we also look into policymakers and regulators and success of regulatory interventions and the development of policies. We are deploying two different sets of tools. And we heard already from Aisha about supply side and demand side tools. Supply side tools are information that we get from statistical offices, from operators, from national accounts, and price that we can collect through desk research, while demand side tools are information that we collect through surveys, household surveys, business surveys, perception surveys. And what we like to evaluate in the sector performance review is access, usage, affordability, operator performance, and the impact on the general economy. If you look, for example, at access, we could look at supply side data, the number of subscribers reported, or we can look in the survey and find out how many people said that they own a mobile phone.
Christopher?
Yes?
Just to speak a bit slower for the translators.
All right. Okay. So, for example, in Namibia, we had that only 50% of individuals in 2007-2008 owned a mobile phone, while the subscriber numbers would have suggested that nearly everyone had a mobile phone. What are you doing? Sorry. So on the demand side we can do a survey and find out what the actual numbers are, and also find out how many duplicated SIM cards there are and what the reasons for these duplicated SIM cards are. And we can further then split the results into rural and urban, by gender, explain it in terms of income and disposable income. So the survey provides a much better tool to understand the figures. In terms of usage, on the supply side, one would look into the average revenue per user and also into the minutes of use. From a demand side, we can look into expenditure. And for example, expenditure as a total share of disposable income. We can also look into how many text messages were sent and how many minutes were sent by individuals. In terms of affordability, one would look into supply side data of using OECD price baskets or basket or cost frontiers, what Aisha described on supply side. And on the demand side, we would look into price elasticities. How did the mobile expenditure change with change in education, change in income, or change in prices? And what is also very powerful is the tool of willingness to pay, where we ask people that don't use the service yet, maybe broadband or mobile or fixed, what they would be willing and able to spend on these services, therefore getting an estimate of the untapped market. For operator performance, we just look into supply side data, investment, EBITDA margins, return on equity, revenue. And for the economy, we can also have a dual approach. We can on the one hand look into national accounts, but often we find that the sectors that are being reported cluster together transport and communication, and it doesn't allow us to disaggregate these figures. When we do our surveys, we can estimate the GDP contribution and also the employment contribution by, for example, small businesses to the economy through these surveys. Now I would like to go and explain these different tools that we're using in a little bit more detail. So the surveys allow us to estimate the untapped demand. allow us to estimate income elasticity, multiple SIM card usage, internet adoption. And in Africa, for example, we are having a different problem to the one that you seem to have in Latin America, because fixed broadband access is very, very thinly spread in Africa. Namibia last year had 6,000 ADSL subscribers. You can't count them on our fingers, but still they're very, very few. So most of the internet access is actually provided through mobile phones. And now for the next year of survey, we will test for how people actually get to the internet. Have they first used a computer and now also use the mobile phone as addition? Or maybe only using mobile phone and later on migrate to a computer as a more comfortable and faster platform. We deal with mobile money transfer, employment information, and ICT access provided by schools and other public institutions. For the next round of survey, we will deploy a new methodology. Usually, in order to generate nationally representative samples in surveys, one needs to use the census sample frame from the statistical offices. And the way one would sample a household survey would be to first sample enumerator areas, then list all the households in these enumerator areas, and then randomly sample from this listing. And we found that if we list at the same time SMEs and public institutions, we can actually, in a cost-effective way, do 3 surveys in one go. This is an example how sector performance can be assessed by just looking at the willingness to pay and ability to pay. We display in the first column the current market in US dollars, in Canadian US dollars, for those that used mobile phones in 2007-2008. The second column displays the willingness and ability to pay, aggregated on the of those that didn't have a mobile phone then, but what they would be willing and able to spend. And for example, in countries like Ethiopia, we find that the untapped market is 5 times the size of the served market, which is a really bad sector performance. The reason for this in Ethiopia is that there is a monopoly. It's very difficult to buy SIM cards, and when they become available, the handset price increases by 100% or 200%. So the availability of SIM cards and the underperformance of the monopoly service provider leads to an underperformance of the sector. This is an example how the survey can be used to assess the digital divide in the country. The table shows that between 2004 and 2007 in the demand-side surveys, household access to electricity, fixed line TV, computer and internet increased at national level, increased on urban level, and increased also in rural areas. But at the same time it shows that the difference between rural and urban decreased for electricity, fixed line, radio and TV, but actually increased for computer and internet. So we find that doing these surveys allows us to disaggregate and actually get to the core of issues. So in rural areas we find it increases. Yes, there is progress, but the digital divide actually increased. Another tool which we frequently use is OECD basket methodology. And these price baskets, which we get from the supply side, can be used to compare countries, can be used to compare operators, and can be used to compare products. On a product level, for example, if you were to choose a plan, a prepaid or postpaid package, you are often confronted with multiple choices from operators. In South Africa, there's over 100 products in the market, varying on various aspects. And it's very difficult for a consumer to find out which one would be the best and most suitable package. By pricing all products from all operators, consumers get price transparency, and they can choose which basket they would be closest to and then choose a product that would fit their needs. Comparing operators can give information about the competitive pressure in the industry, and comparing countries is useful to benchmark and provide policy advice. For example, I can be comparing the cheapest product available from dominant operators, from cheapest operators, and most expensive operators.